Welcome everyone to this Aforza webinar. My name is Tim Knight and it gives me great pleasure to introduce your hosts and speakers for today's session. First up is Dominic Donato, and Dominic is the co-founder and CEO of Aforza. And Dominic will be ably supported in today's session by our Director of Solution Engineering, Marco van Gent. Marco will be showing us Aforza in action. So, without any further delay, I'll pass the presentation directly over to Dominic.
Hi everybody, hello ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining our webinar today entitled The Race to Agility. We're very privileged to have you join us and invest time with us. So we're very grateful for that. I mean, investing time is precious even in normal times, but today in the days of the pandemic and COVID-19, investing time is extra special and precious. And it's because we're in different times and we're living through extraordinary circumstances. All of us are trying to figure out how to be adaptable, how we deal with all the different changes that are happening on a daily basis. And that's why our Summer 20 release, we thought, was all about just that, the adaptability of solutions that you need to do your work today. And that's why we've entitled this webinar, our Summer 20 briefing has been entitled The Race to Agility. So ladies and gentlemen, we have a very packed agenda and we'll be going at a fair pace through all the content. We're going to talk about this urgent need for agility. I think we probably all intrinsically understand this, but we're going to get to some real specifics about why you need agility now. Then we're going to talk about driving real-time tactics. What does that really mean? Like, what capabilities does this give you? What will it give you today that you couldn't do, previously? And we'll talk about driving best practice orders as well, and about how the use of artificial intelligence can actually really help you. Then we'll talk about being ready for tomorrow now, how you can go about actually getting started with all of this technology. And we're going to liberally scatter demos of each of these points throughout the presentation, so it won't all be very academic. You'll actually get the chance to see really real-life examples in action. In consumer goods, driving revenue has always been hard. There's always things you've got to deal with, like new market entrants popping up left, right, and center, and doing all sorts of competitive things to try to disrupt you. Then you've got the perennial problem of figuring out how to do more with less. Your field teams, you're not getting massive increases in budgets and your ability to execute, etc., but you're trying to do more with on the same or less budget, and so the cost to serve is forever challenged. And then since time immemorial, we were always dealing with stock challenges, and things like poor retail execution can actually cost billions. In fact, the statistic is on screen there. IRI thinks it's about $47 billion annually. And this is in normal times. And of course, today, in the pandemic world that we live in, unfortunately, current conditions make it harder even than before. If value-based spending was something that was important in the past, it certainly is today. We know discretionary spending is down. Staple spending has had a somewhat of a bubble, but we know that that's a particular point in time thing. But value-based spending is going to be important. You've seen digital explosion, but we're also seeing that in many places, in many countries, you see that what McKinsey is saying, we're dealing in places where digital migrations is expected to rescind. So in Western Europe, France, Germany, Southern European countries expect digital spending to go down, even though the United States and the United Kingdom seem to have had some people flip for good. And so we're going to see a whole mixture of online omni-channel, but there's definitely a lot of local shopping going on as well. So, I think the current thing we can say is whatever you thought the world was, in December 2019, today in the summer of 2020, everything is changing yet again. And I mean, kudos to all the consumer goods companies on the call, the people working hard in these challenges, because I know just what you have to do to make all this work. It's not an easy task, and it's something going to get more and more challenging. And the one thing we can almost absolutely predict is there is going to be change in the days to come, which is why it's so important that every selling moment we have really matters. And McKinsey put it really nicely, and they wrote a really great report. There's a link in the bottom here. You want to be able to perform the right actions at the right outlets at the right time, execute flawlessly every day. And that sounds just obvious, right? It sounds like the perfect thing to do, um, but it's surprisingly hard. And so we spent a lot of time thinking about this, and we're trying to get to the bottom of why is this so hard to do? And we thought we'll give you a couple of anecdotes here. We'll split them into people, process, and technology to actually tell you stories about why mastering the moments turns out to be a lot trickier than you'd have imagined. So we had one top 10 global drinks company. This is actually coming out of the United Kingdom, where they rolled out a new solution, mobile solution for their field teams to try and do surveys and audits and basically capture, perfect store type processes around the country. And they made a decision that in the world it was today, that everything would work online and they wouldn't need offline capabilities. And it turned out to be a major, major challenge. If you can't get the Wi-Fi or internet signal in the bars that you're in, for example, you don't do the surveys and audits in real time. Actually, what turned out was they were congregating in McDonald's at lunchtime, trying to find Wi-Fi signals to try and update data afterwards, which then becomes an admin task and not something that they personally get value out of. It wasn't really the transformational change, that they were looking for. Mastering the perfect sales moment doesn't happen in McDonald's at lunchtime. It just doesn't. And then another one, which and what has always amazed me with these stories is these are not coming from small companies. These are from like global top 10 companies. This was another one, a consumer goods company. Actually, it was again in the United Kingdom, and this one, and they were talking about how whenever they rolled out new products, they couldn't do it with their existing systems, and they had to like cobble together new processes that used Excel. And again, it's not like smooth, agile execution. It's kind of like bolt stuff onto the side and try and get it to work and train everybody. And it's just not what you want to be doing, is it? And then the third one, and I want to be careful when I say this one, is like technology. And my experience of working in the consumer goods industry is that the IT and technology teams that I deal with are actually incredibly professional, committed employees, but they're kind of ground down a bit with like plumbing all the time, trying to get their different systems to work together. So they get the ERP system and CRM system, and then they have to try and figure out how to get like a data model and an industry model in place, and then perennially they bolt on the mobile applications on the side. And it just turns out into being a plumbing exercise. Like you spend more time on cobbling this stuff together than actually figuring out how to actually drive the business. It's kind of like a big challenge. So when we think about mastering the moments, right, there are kind of reasons why it turns out to be more challenging than you might have expected. But we know that in the summer of 2020, as we start to think about going into, the end of the year and what's going to come next, there is no new normal. The one thing we can absolutely predict is we're going to have a lot of change, and change requires rapid adaptability, the ability to actually make business changes happen as fast as you can based on what's going on in the markets then and there today. And I guess the key question really I ask everybody is like, are your systems and processes the anchor that might be holding you back? And McKinsey actually put, it was the same report referenced earlier. They said that most mature consumer goods companies need to jettison their legacy IT setup. It's quite a strong statement, right? Maybe that's a bit extreme, but one thing I think is really very very clear is, and we'll see this in the data comes up. There's a big difference between the digital achievers and the digital laggards now in their ability to actually thrive in this world. And complexity can often make this even harder than it has than we can imagine. Let me explain. If you think about sequence of things going over time, right, and you think about in your own company the very sizable investments you made in your ERP infrastructure, your CRM infrastructure, and you probably have some sensible change management in place. Maybe you have, I don't know, maybe you've got like a third party mobile field sales type solution, and you're like constantly taking change requests and trying to update it and respond to what's going on. But today, we're dealing with ever increasing numbers and complexity of promotions. We're thinking about different channels to different ways to take, pricing points or take orders from direct to consumer, distributors, wholesalers, retailers, all sorts of different channels, frankly. And we try to cover a field territory with a number of store visits via our own employees, third parties, maybe even the general public. So you're dealing with all these different things going on. And when you think about what you're investing in and how you manage your IT infrastructure, you have this agility gap that just gets wider and wider as time goes on. And the consequences of this agility gap can mean lost shelf space, market share, inconsistent approaches to things like discounting, and this hits margins and sales. And actually, in the McKinsey report, they said that in compound annual growth terms, there's a 60% difference in the rate of growth in companies that are digitally agile versus laggards. And as time goes on, as this graph tries to show, that 60% starts to really make a difference in your company's performance. So I think we can all probably relate to this diagram and think about it. So if we zone in on this, like what do we need to do here to actually solve this agility gap, right? What do we do to actually fix some of these challenges that we see in front of us? Well, getting ready for tomorrow now, we believe there's a number of capabilities and you will need as a consumer goods company to actually close this gap. And we kind of on this slide have said there's certain specific parts of visiting, delivering, selling, and planning actually you want to be able to do. If your teams are in the field, really they should have the access to best practice templates for surveys, like that are updating in real time all the time, and it should be dynamic, right? We should have consumer grade user experiences. Shouldn't really to take my field team off the road for weeks to train them. Like it's only done in 5 minutes. It needs to be really, really fast. I need to upgrade them, be able to support them, turn them into consultative salespeople. And if I look at something like, let's see here, selling, if I have people on telesales work or in the field capturing orders, whatever channel it is, I want to be able to have recommended orders, penny perfect pricing. I want all of it just to work. I want artificial intelligence to support me to help my customers maximize their revenue. And then actually, we want integrated planning, right? All of this has to move smoothly end to end, has to work online, has to work offline. But my planning team needs to be able to do things like hyperlocal segmentation and route optimization. And we'll get into some of the facets of this in the 21st century that make it very, very different to what it was before. Because I want to be able to do things whereby hyperlocal means I can say I want to target every bar that's within a mile of the beach and I want to make this offer to them. That's the kind of abilities I want. Or maybe I want to say it's, everyone within 500 meters of the city centre, or everyone that's, competing with, I don't know, let's say Pepsi or something like that, in a specific area. You can do that with this kind of controls. Let's get into that. So Aforza. Aforza is, there's me. I'm in the middle here in glorious black and white. I'm flanked by my two good friends and co-founders, Nick and Ed, who we've worked together for decades, and we've been in the Salesforce ecosystem for something like more than 30 years, which I find a little bit scary. So we're all cloud veterans, and we actually worked in other industry dedicated companies like Viva and Velocity. And we knew and saw that the consumer goods industry was frankly underserved. It didn't have access to what we would consider to be world-class software products dedicated to the market. And so we've set out with the backing of important investors like Bonfire Dahar and Salesforce Ventures to create an industry cloud for consumer goods. So we have put together an A team. We've been going for just over a year, and we have won customers like Heineken, and we're growing very quickly, and we're completely dedicated to the consumer goods, the food and beverage industry. We're helped by people like Gonzalo Esposito, who's a former CIO from Unilever, and Mark Dyer, who's the CEO of Dyer Foods. And so we have these kind of people, along with Brett and Naracha's from Salesforce, to give us a lot of good advice and guidance. We put together a really, really strong team, very tightly aligned with Salesforce, tightly aligned with Salesforce's Consumer Goods Cloud, building on all these platforms to produce state-of-the-art applications. So let's talk about some of those applications, and let's talk about the first key feature that we think is very, very important to your ability to deliver agility here and now, active segmentation. We're going to see this in a demonstration in a second, and we give this demonstration to a revenue manager recently, and his immediate reaction was 5 to 10% sales growth. What is active segmentation? Well, what we see is most typically in consumer goods companies, segmentation can turn out to be a massive, massive task. You end up, it's one of these things where you get a lot of data scientists and analysts, and they might do it maybe once every couple of years or something, and really try and segment the market and work it all out. But we're not in a world where the market stays static for 2 5 years at a time. We're in a world where stuff happens in real time. So we've produced a tool that lets you actually model and react with segmentation capabilities in real time and link it to things like promotions so that you can drive tactics and produce results in real time. So let's imagine you might want to, for example, understand if someone is a promo hunter or whether they're in a VIP category or whether there's white space, and have all sorts of things in real time change so that your field teams can respond to that. Let's have a look at the demonstration.
Thank you, and hello everybody. In this demonstration I'll take you through some of our active segmentation capabilities. Segments are used to dynamically group your customers or prospects and target them with the right assortments, promotions or discounts. But it can also be used to drive hyperlocal tactics based on customer behavior and local situations, and it can unlock or exclude specific products, merchandising or pricing. Now let's see this in action. I'm logged into the Aforza online system and reviewing one of my accounts. I have a full 360-degree view of all the information that is recorded of this customer, including some visualized KPIs. For this scenario, we'll focus on the segmentation capabilities. So here I can see all the attributes that have been assigned to this account, either manually or driven automatically by business rules. Attributes can be of different types of nature, so can have predefined values for the attributes, have free entry, or just have things like they are true or false. I can easily add new attributes utilizing our suggested list of attributes, or just search through the whole list of available attributes. So I can choose things like, did my customers pay their invoices on time, yes or no? So this single attribute that is now assigned to the account may open up and trigger a whole bunch of capabilities to this account. Now, if you want to target a specific group of accounts, we can configure a segment, leveraging these attributes and utilizing our Aforza segment builder. Here I'm in the segment builder where I have already set up some rules to define all supermarkets that are in Catalonia. By adding additional rules on these attributes, I can even make it more localized. So for instance, if we want to target all supermarkets close to the beach. So I can search for beach proximity attribute and define a rule that it needs to be less or equal to, let's say, 3. Every time that I change something in the rules, on the bottom I have a simulation utility that basically predicts the number of accounts that comply with the rules that are defined for this segment. So now I can see that 25% of my customer base is hit by this segment. If I scroll back up, I can also see that I can define on which channels this segment will be available. So in this case, on my mobile application, as well as on the online application that we're in now. I can also define who in the system, based on their role, they can have access to this segment. So I can really target it to specific users in my user base. Next to the rules, I can also drill down into related information, where I can see which commercial elements are making use of this segment. So I can see that I've defined 2 promotions that are targeted to this segment, 1 assortment, the supermarket assortment, and 2 pricing policies. I can also use active segmentation to build out targeted routes. If I click on the route tab, I can see all the accounts that apply to my segmentation rules and are part of this segment. I can either select them all or just a few to build out a route. I can give it a name and let it have it generated. This pulls it onto our mapping capability, where I can see the route here on top, which I can manage or view. If I click through on the route, it will plot it on the map, so I can visualize the route as a whole, and I can drill down into more detail if needed. At the bottom I have a quick view on the elements that make up the route. On top I can see the number of stops, the route distance and the estimated driving time. From here I can click through on some more details on the route itself and even into individual elements. So I can see the address information, the date it was last visited, and see some contact details of the person on the account. And by clicking on the account name, I'm taken back to the details of the account. Now let me show you some more of our dynamic nature of our segmentation capabilities. To address our top customers, I've created a VIP segment based on the perfect store score or the picture of success. We see that currently our customer has a score of 8. If I navigate to the VIP customer segment, you can see that the rule that has been set up is looking for a value that is higher or equal to 9. So we look at the bottom, we see that our simulation predicts that none of our accounts currently applies to this rule. So we can either change the value of the attribute at the account if they improve their score, or we can be more flexible on the rules and say, well, let's change this value to 8. Now by changing that, we'll see that now the prediction is that our customer will become a VIP customer. So what I just showed you is the concept of changing or using attributes and dynamically pull customers in or out of segmentation. That opens up potentially a whole bunch of new things for them, like promotions, assortments, or pricing. Thank you, and now back to the presentation.
Thanks so much for that demonstration. So everyone, I think you can all agree with me, you saw there how active segmentation lets you drive real-time actions. You can respond to events or even drive events in real time, mobile, online, or offline. And it gives you a way to handle segmentation in a more practical daily manner, not something where it becomes, that very big analytical exercise that happens maybe at best once a year. You can do it in the moment. I think this is really going to be important for our lives going forwards. We all know how things are going to change every day in businesses and our lives because of pandemics and goodness knows what else we've thrown at us tomorrow. Having these capabilities just makes us much more reactive, but also the ability to be proactive. And on that theme, let's talk about our next capability that's going to be really, really influential in this industry going forwards. We've got a capability we've called Aforza Predict. And frankly, what we're trying to do here is increase the revenue impact of every single employee you have out in the field, every user of the Aforza system. And what we're doing is we're using artificial intelligence to look for the white space in the orders and in the stores and retail outlets. Look for the next best product that should be added automatically on a given order. And why not just predict the whole order in its completeness anyway? And any combination thereof. And do this not just on one channel, but why not do it omni-channel? And of course, Aforza understands that in consumer goods, when we say do things on every channel, when we say do predictions on omni-channel, it also means offline. So let's have a couple of looks at some examples now and get straight into it. Let's have a look at a demonstration, predictive ordering demonstration.
Great, and welcome back everybody. We're back in the Aforza application, and I'll start this demonstration using our online order capability. At the left-hand side, you can see all the products and assortments that are eligible for my customer, where I can drill down into more detail to view different types of assortments that may be driven by the active segmentation that we saw before. We also can have some products being recommended to me where we utilize the red labels. But rather than handpicking the products, assortments, or brands that I want to sell to my customer, I can use some tools to help me create orders. Therefore, I can utilize things like past orders if there's a repetitive nature in what my customers are ordering, or I can order from a template. For instance, if you run a certain promotion and you have packaged up products and merchandising together. But when I want to sell the right products at the right time, I can have Aforza assist me to predict and configure the perfect order here and now. So if I click this button, it will utilize our Aforza Predict product to view what might be the best order for this customer at this point in time. So if I click back to my cart, I see that's a combination of some merchandising where we have a fridge and some ice cream that come along with it, which might be the order that is being predicted for today. Now, our prediction capabilities not only work online, but also offline on my mobile when I'm in the field. Let's review that now. When I'm in the field visiting my customers, I can use the Aforza offline mobile application to do my work. When launching the app, I can see all the visits that have been scheduled for me for today, tomorrow, and the next couple of days. By clicking through on one of the visits, I can see some address information, check in and start my visit. The main task for today is capture an order. Let's do that. So I can set some information around the order and then start. I can select from a specific product category to make it easier for me to select the appropriate products. Let's sell some ice cream today. As we saw online as well, there's a bunch of products available to me that are eligible for this customer, maybe based on some segmentation elements. For now, we capture a summer promotion. So let's start with the fridge. Let's add that to the cart. Also here, we see Aforza Predict coming in action and show some suggested products in the context of the current product that I've just selected. So by adding the fridge to the cart, it suggests me also to sell some ice cream to the customer. Let's do that. So I can add a certain quantity, add it to the cart, and then together with the fridge, we can review the cart. So here I can see the two products that I've selected and put in my cart, where one, the ice cream is broken down into 2 line items. Because there's a promotion active, I get one free if I buy a quantity of 10. So you can see on top there's a line item with 9 that I need to pay, and there's one element that is free. Here in the cart is also a link to see additional recommendations that have been created by Aforza Predict. So I can see, for instance, additional products that may be suggested, not in the context of my previous selections, but in a more general context. So I can also add some additional products to the cart. Now I showed you mobile order capture with product suggestions and recommendations. But this can also be hyperlocal, combining AI-driven predictions and active segmentation. If I navigate to the account information of this account, also here I can see all the attributes that have been assigned to my customer. So I can review them, change values, or add or remove attributes depending on the current situation. Now, based on my survey, I've identified that my customer is now doing a score of 9 of their picture of success. So basically, with the rules in the back of our minds that we saw online, it now basically turns Mercado Fresh Center from a regular customer to a VIP customer. Now, with that in mind, if I go back to my customer and do a new order, for instance, I want to reorder some additional ice cream. When I put the same product to the cart, again, make it a quantity of 10 or more, add it to the cart and see the results, is you see now that rather than having to buy 10 to get one free, I only have to buy 5 to get one free. So there's a new promotion or a new pricing rule immediately become active fully offline by just changing the value of one of the attributes. So our predictive ordering and active segmentation create a unique combination to sell the right products at the right time with penny perfect pricing everywhere. With that, I want to thank you and back to the presentation.
Thanks so much for that very powerful demonstration. And I think you can all see there how we were able to do predictions for next best products, white space, entire orders, how we can even take AI and those capabilities to do the Aforza Predict capabilities offline onto the mobile device. Very, very powerful stuff. And the goal there is to make sure that we're boosting the revenue impact of every single user of the system, every one of your field employees. Now, I made a little bit of a joke earlier in the presentation when I said whenever I mention AI, someone usually wants to send me to like the guys with the white coats. So it's going to be really hard to do. It's technical. It involves IT. Well, it probably does involve IT. But the real key point is we in Aforza really believe in getting things practical and working as fast as possible. We think in the 21st century, we don't really have time. Like we've talked about agility and adaptability this whole presentation. We need to be able to get things working fast and get them working now. So we thought about this, about how can we bring these kind of technologies to bear in a practical way. So we've come up with methods you can use our software where you can seed the initial recommendations. We've got pre-built models that give you a quick start. And you've got a way in the system where like prediction is actually scored to build user confidence steadily. And basically what I'm trying to say here is when you add it all up, we've got a way to make this practical, useful, and valuable to you in a very short space of time. It's not something that goes off to the guys with the white coats for years. It's something that you can do in days, and get the value from it very, very quickly. So we thought hard about this whole thing, about how to get this kind of technologies into the hands of people in a scalable and practical way. And we thought that we should split the software into three mainstream editions here, which I'll briefly touch on to explain how they work. We came up with a Aforza Essentials, if you like. This like an entry point. Perhaps it's suitable for smaller companies to get started. And this is really the kind of product that supports your merchandising, your field people out there who are doing surveys, audits, following routes, visits and tasks and things. It's got a consumer goods platform in there, but it's kind of like the entry-level product. Really powerful stuff that you can do with it. But perhaps it's something that you would do in a smaller team. Our most popular edition, and the one where we see the most traction in all companies of all sizes, actually, to be fair, is Aforza Professional. That does everything that the Essentials product does, but it goes on to actually sales execution, the ability to do pricing, order capture, promotion execution, inventory and stock taking, and all sorts of capabilities, all mobile, online, and offline, and also supports telesales channels and so forth. So that's kind of like a core product, if you like, foundational product. And then for the more sophisticated users, and those that are going into trade promotion management, where you start to do things like baselining and start to think more about the artificial intelligence we're talking about, and all these kind of technologies, we have our enterprise edition. And you can scale up from these. Like all of you would pick an edition, and then you can move up the chain as your situations and scenarios demand it. So you have a lot of flexibility there to scale up. All of this software works seamlessly with Salesforce's Consumer Goods Cloud, which is great. So if you perhaps, I don't know, maybe you're looking at vision recognition type technologies, or Einstein Vision might be something where you want to do analysis of a shelf or something. All of this technology seamlessly couples into the Salesforce's CG Cloud. And we've talked about Salesforce a few times in this presentation, and that's because Aforza is actually built on the shoulders of two cloud computing giants, Salesforce and the Google Cloud Platform. So all of the CRM type capabilities where you saw in demonstrations where we're using accounts and contacts and so forth, all of that kind of capability is coming from being built on the Salesforce platform, but we've massively extended it to make sure there's a data model that's suitable to support your business needs, and then built many engines to do things like pricing and segmentation on top of it all. And then we leverage the Google Cloud to make sure that we've got that scalability for when we need to do the stuff that really requires the heavy computer science and heavy lifting and number crunching. We've got the capabilities from the Google Cloud to do that. And all of our additions run across these platforms. And just like Salesforce, Aforza upgrades its software 3 times a year. And this is part of your subscription service. It's kind of a really core part of the value. It's not like legacy systems in the past where do you remember in the days you used to buy software, spend ages installing it, and then you live with it for a few years. Then basically you go for this incredibly expensive upgrade path where you reinstall it and recustomize it. And we don't do any of that nightmare. We keep you on the latest version, so you're never left with a legacy software problem. So as a subscriber, you get all the benefits of the latest release and latest improvements as we go along. Now, all of that capability that we talked about, all of that CRM goodness, the engines, the pricing capabilities, ability to segment, all that data model, we take all of that and we mobilize it. So you can completely take all of our additions and use them offline. And that even includes our Aforza Predict AI engine. It includes our segmentation engines. And this is one of the things that we believe makes Aforza completely unique, because we've rebuilt the engines in such a way where they it's the same engine that runs online or offline. Why is that important? Because it makes for a very, very scalable and performant application, and it makes for accuracy. So if I tell you that the pricing engine that is being used in telesales is exactly the same code that your field rep is using on his mobile device, even when disconnected from the internet, you can have a high level of certainty that with Aforza you'll get penny perfect pricing because it's the same on every channel. As I like to say, in consumer goods, unlike other industries, in consumer goods, omni-channel includes offline. So the ability to do all this, I think, and do all this in your mobile device makes it incredibly powerful. And that puts a lot of the proactivity and reactivity into the hands of the field user while they're in the store, not like when you're connected to the internet sometime later. Now, we're really privileged, pleased, and excited to have partnered with Heineken on a digital transformation project that they're doing in Portugal. And this is a very comprehensive project that the team is running there under CIO Marek Tolash. They're doing a project to implement a brand new implementation of SAP S4HANA and Salesforce. And we brought in Aforza specifically to help solve their challenges around the mobile enablement of their employees. They had in excess of some 500 actually or so people in the field trying to capture orders and do deliveries and so forth. And Aforza is driving all of those processes. So we're super excited to be doing that project with them. And actually, if you're interested in this and learning more about the Heineken project, I can tell you that if you browse our website, aforza.com, you can find a fascinating podcast that we did actually with the CIO, our good friend Marek Tolas, and you can learn more about the project there. Now, we think that today you need to get to value very, very quickly. I think the age of these big, complicated software projects where you bring in armies of thousands of people and expect results in years, I just don't think that really anyone has a tolerance for that anymore. I think it's too expensive, it's too risky. And people, if you're buying a product, you really should get value from it far, far quicker than that. So we've come up with some very simple methodologies about how you can define your processes, decide what's going to be in the product catalog, your account data sets and so forth. And basically, go from definition to configuration and basically roll it out. And so we come up with a very fast methodology where we think you can get an ROI on an Aforza project, where you start to get some sort of value back in less than 10 weeks, if not faster. It depends a little bit, of course, on the size of your company, your circumstances. But, we've kind of said this 10 weeks thing is a midpoint target. And even in the most largest complex environments, there's no reason why you can't get to value in this kind of speed. This is an out-of-the-box product. It's not it's not a toolkit. It's not like you're going to go build a bunch of stuff. You're going to take the product, you're going to put in some values and definitions of some things about how you want your business to work, and you're going to use it and get value from it very, very quickly. That's the goal of what we're seeking to do here. And just to bring it back to what are those benefits, just as we spoke about earlier, I love this McKinsey report. I have to say, actually, I'm a big fan of McKinsey. I read all the reports they send out on these subjects. But their analysis showed, right, that the difference between the digital achievers and the digital laggards, there's a 60% difference in the compound annual growth of those companies. And if you just think about that difference year on year for yourself, for your own revenues and your rate of growth, and what it means if your competitors are using these technologies against you necessarily, how rapidly that can become quite a big gap, right? So that's kind of an important point. And then I love this quote. Unfortunately, I can't tell the person, can't give away the person who said it. But we gave this segmentation demo to somebody in one of the world's leading soft drinks company. You can take a quick guess which one that might be. It's kind of famous. And the revenue manager there said immediately there's a 5 to 10% revenue increase from active segmentation alone. Right? So very, very powerful capabilities we think we can do to help you. So what should you do next? Well, I hope we've entertained, educated, and intrigued you in our presentation today. And we thought something that we thought would be compelling to leave you with as a potential next step would be how about de-risking a fast start to an Aforza project. So we are very pleased to tell you that we're in fact launching the ability to do free trials. There's a URL at the bottom of the page here, which you can if you're making a note of while I'm talking, we can distribute it to everybody in the follow-up actions as well. But we're going to basically implement the ability to do a free trial. This means that you can actually try this technology out, but and we can give you some support and some advice to do that, and you can get a sense for just how powerful it is, and get a little taste of what the changes could be for your business, and then we can help you from that in a seamless process where how you could take that trial environment, if you put some effort into it, how you would then be able to promote that into production environment in time. So hopefully that's interesting to you and exciting, and we would love to engage with you in that. So with that, I just want to say a huge thank you. Again, I do understand just how valuable in today's world your time is. I appreciate you investing a little bit with us. Hopefully it's been valuable, and we would love to partner with you in the future. So a huge thanks from me and the team at Aforza.